So how much money does chakra cost? This may sound like a ridiculous question, but trust me, it's a very interesting one. To answer it, you may point to the amount of payment shinobis get from the missions they accomplish, ranking from D to S. Obviously, the higher the mission, the more the ninja's gonna get paid, but you don't really get a specific sense of how much chakra itself would cost from the prices of missions. Because in theory, there is no set quantity of chakra that a ninja will have to spend for any given mission. Everything is situational. Maybe there's an S-rank mission out there that the ninja's not gonna have to spend any chakra. That's actually easier than he thought. And maybe there's a D-rank mission out there that the ninja's gonna have to spend a lot of chakra. And that's not gonna change the payment for the ninjas. The rank of the mission will decide that beforehand. And that makes sense. After all, ninjas are not chosen to complete missions because of how much chakra they have, but because of their capabilities. A ninja may have less chakra than another ninja, but he may be more powerful, or he may have specific abilities that will fit perfectly for a specific mission. So we can use the payment of missions to determine the value of chakra itself. And don't get me wrong here, the amount ninjas get paid is very important. It's a big part of the world building. It gives the ninjas their money, and it also funds the shinobi villages around the world. But what I'm trying to figure out here is the cost of chakra itself, the commodity, the energy. Why is that relevant, you may ask? Well, the first thing I have to say is electricity. You may dismiss this or not even pay attention to it, but electricity is ubiquitous in the shinobi world. Not only do we see light poles and power lines in pretty much every village we ever visit, we also see them in roads. We also see all types of devices that are powered by electricity in Naruto, like when Anka was watching a VHS of Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro arriving at the tower from the Forest of Death. And also remember the big LED monitor that was showing the versus battles that were going to happen in the preliminaries of the Chunin exams? That had to be electricity. We also see TVs in the Naruto world, they require electricity. And you may say, well, it's just electricity. Why does that matter? But this little fact, or major fact, may be more important than you think, because the next question I'll have to ask is, how do they create electricity in the Naruto world? Do they use coal plants? Do they use hydropower? Solar power? Nuclear power? It strikes me as odd to think that any of these types of modern, or not so modern when it comes to cold, methods of producing electricity to be used in the Naruto world. It just feels kind of wrong. Like, can you imagine a nuclear power plant in the Naruto world? It makes no sense. It doesn't really fit, does it? But do you know what fits the Naruto world to create electricity? Yes, chakra. And if there's something that's always in demand and it's always going to generate money for your economy, this is gonna be a way to produce electricity. Just take a look at any petro state. And in the Naruto world, we just so happen to have several walking power plants just roaming around, going on missions and stuff. Now, you may say that chakra doesn't necessarily create electricity because only a few people have access to lightning style, but you don't even need lightning style to create electricity. Any of the 5 major nature transformations could be used to produce electricity. If we take fire style, for example, heating things up is the most used method in the world to create electricity. That's how coal plants, oil plants, and even nuclear power plants work in the real world. They all heat up water that becomes steam, and that water powers up a turbine that generates electricity. Now in the ninja world, instead of using all those other commodities, you use chakra instead to produce fire style, heat up the water, spin the turbine, and that's it. You have electricity. You just need the technology to produce that turbine, which is something kind of advanced, but us humans figured it out over 100 years ago. And the overall Naruto text seems way more advanced than that. You can also use the other types of nature transformations to produce electricity. With wind style, you have wind power, which is literally a type of electricity production in the real world, even though it's really inefficient. The same thing for water. Hydropower is a major source of electricity as well. Ninjas that have access to water and wind style could use their styles to spin the turbine and produce electricity. The same thing goes for earth style. You could use the movements of your earth style jutsu to spin turbines as well. So every major nation would be able to produce electricity. Now, we know that even though most ninjas that have access to fire style are going to live in the land of fire, so on and so forth, there are ninjas of every single style in every single village. Now, take a look at Kakashi, for example. Major lightning style user. He's not from the land of lightning or anything. But obviously, lightning style itself would be the most efficient way to produce electricity because you're not going to lose any power or energy is spinning the turbine itself, if you are creating lightning out of your chakra. There's no middleman. The other 4 elements will be the middleman. They are being used to spin the turbine, which creates electricity. But if you create electricity yourself, you don't even have to develop those turbines, and you are just so much more efficient. And if I were to guess, this is probably how most nations around the world produce electricity. Maybe if they don't have access to a lightning style user or many lightning style users enough to produce electricity for the whole country, they would hire ninjas from other nations they're able to. Especially the smaller nations, not the 5 great ones, they're way smaller and have fewer ninjas, would have to hire these types of shinobi to produce electricity for them. I mean, how do you think they built the Rain Village with a diesel punk aesthetic and those massive metal buildings? You would have needed a lot of electricity for that. And I don't see a ton of rain ninjas with that power. I don't know. So you can see, because there's a massive demand for electricity, chakra itself, the commodity that creates it, would be extremely valuable, just like oil is in the real world. And as obviously oil is used for many other things, but electricity is one of them. And the weirdest thing about electricity in the Naruto world is that it's way older than you may expect, because when Madara and Hashirama just found the Leaf Village, before the Leaf Village even has Hashirama's face on the mount, we can clearly see electricity cables, light poles, and even what looks like an air conditioning unit in the Madara Hashirama flashback. So this is old technology, meaning that they probably figured it out kind of a long time ago during the Warring States period at most. Oh, lightning style is pretty useful for us to create electricity. Who would have figured? Or maybe because they live on the fire, they use fire style, which wouldn't be as efficient, but there will be more people around available to create electricity for them. So I suppose in a pinch, if you have to use fire style and if you have the turbines and stuff, that's fine. And by that logic, the Cloud Village should probably be the richest village in the world, because they could export their lightning style users to create electricity for other countries. And to be fair, the Cloud Village looks pretty opulent, with those massive buildings on top of those mountains. Now, maybe it's not as wealthy as the Leaf Village, for example, because of its geography. It doesn't seem very favorable, let's be real here. The land feels very arid when you look at it, and that's never too conducive for an overall balanced economy, which the Leaf Village seems to have in spades. The Sand Village would be in a lot of trouble as well, because they live in a desert, and they mostly have wind style, which is probably the least efficient method of electricity production in the 5 nature transformations, so that's probably why they're the weakest of the 5 major villages. So you can see how chakra definitely has a monetary value in the Naruto world. But the problem is, we don't really have a measurement of chakra. Like, how much does a liter of chakra cost, or an ounce of chakra? There is no metric for chakra itself. And as obviously we're getting very granular here, but in the real world, you can bet that they would come up with a measurement for chakra, something to standardize a specific quantity of chakra for them to assign a specific value. Like a kilogram of gold has a standardized price all around the world. But the thing is, if we look simply into electricity production out of chakra, then lightning style users would be much more in demand, and their quote-unquote chakra ounces would cost more than a fire style user chakra ounce, and the fire style user chakra ounce would cost more than a wind style user chakra ounce, because wind style is a much less efficient method of electricity production than fire style, and fire style is going to be much less efficient than lightning style. But the thing is, electricity production is not going to be the only type of application chakra is going to have. Well, obviously not. It has all sorts of combat applications. It can also be used for communication, but I am talking more about economic production here, which is something we do not see very often in the Naruto series. Now think about this for a second. What would other types of nature transformations be better than lightning style, for example? Take a look at earth style. It would be perfect to create houses, large building complexes very quickly. I mean, the stone village seems to be made completely out of earth style jutsu. Those houses look like they're made out of stone and from ninjutsu itself. We don't know if that's the case, but it would certainly make sense. And it would be much cheaper for you to build houses if you can do that via ninjutsu. One person that does that a lot during the series is Yamato with his wood style. He builds houses with it. Sure, the first time he builds a house is for him and his team to rest before the Tenchi Bridge mission, but then after Pain destroys the Leaf Village, we can see Yamato raising houses. Yamato is probably one of the reasons why the Leaf Village managed to rebuild so fast. And like, the guy can simply weave a hand sign and he creates several houses. Can you imagine the monetary value this would give you in the real world, for example? It takes a pretty long time for you to build a house. Yamato can do that in a few seconds. And yeah, sure, he gets tired after he builds a lot of those houses after the pain attack, but he can rest and build more the next day. I don't even know why Yamato was even taking missions anymore. I mean, there's the entire wanting to protect the village and land of fire aspect of things, but from a simple monetary standpoint, it makes no sense for Yamato to go on shinobi missions when he can travel around the world building houses for affordable prices, but that are still going to generate him so much more profit. And I'm pretty sure you can think of 1,000 different ways chakra could be applied into more everyday usages, things that would generate a lot of money for those who have chakra and they can make them, and that doesn't have to be restrained to the 5 major elements. I was just using them because it's something easier to think about and to explain. Imagine the Yamanaka clan in a world without the internet, for example. They can be your cell phone, essentially. You can pay a Yamanaka clan member to send a message to somebody very far away. Or imagine a water style company that moves boats with their water style. I bet moving a boat with water style can make it much faster than just a regular engine, and there's definitely going to be a whole market for transportation of people and goods via boat. Like, you can think of a billion different things. And when those things involve something a little bit more predictable in terms of your chakra expenditure and on what you're gonna have to spend your chakra, it's much easier to assign a monetary value to a specific quantity of chakra that you have than it is to assign a value to your chakra when you go on missions, because you never know how much chakra exactly you're going to spend there. And obviously this is not something Kishimoto developed, the quote-unquote monetary value of chakra, because Kishimoto is not a hard world builder at all. Most, if not all, of the technological additions included in the Naruto series are done for aesthetics, or to facilitate things in the plot, like the earpiece communicators that Kakashi uses a few times in the series when he needs to communicate with someone that's kinda far away, but there's a range limit to it. But that doesn't mean you cannot speculate about how these more hard world building concepts would be, especially when chakra is such a malleable thing. You can create pretty much anything with it. So any good or service that you can think of pretty much can be produced with chakra, which would obviously assign a great monetary value to it and would make people with more chakra much richer in the Naruto world, which is kind of already the case because ninjas get a lot of money from ninja missions. But if people who manipulated chakra also had companies and businesses using their chakra to make money, they would be even richer. So the question is, why are there no great corporations that use chakra to produce for the economy, to create goods and provide services for the population? The first explanation you may give is that chakra is rare, but that's not exactly the case. For example, when Itachi put that Lady of the Night under a genjutsu to fool Jiraiya, she definitely was not a shinobi, and yet Itachi was able to manipulate her chakra to put her under a genjutsu, which means that every single person in the Naruto world probably has chakra at some degree, even if it's very minute. And yes, chakra is mostly something you inherit when you're born. Sure, your chakra reserves can increase as you get better and train for them to increase, but there is a major genetic component to it. So you can see how clans would probably structure themselves around specific businesses they'll be good at, and especially clans of people with a lot of chakra are going to be very profitable if they choose to go on the right types of businesses. But this hardly ever happens in the Naruto manga. We see a few glimpses of it here and there, for example when they hook up all 5 daimyos for them to talk about the 4th Great Ninja War, and they're using this weird tubes of communication and antennas and everything. It seems like that's a specialized service provided by people that have access to chakra, so that counts. But that's pretty much it, right? And that's something so niche, like communicating via TV. I mean, niche for them, obviously not for us. And there's actually a very simple explanation as to why chakra businesses would not exist in the Naruto world. It's because the shinobi villages hold the monopoly of chakra. They are the ones who train shinobi, which is something difficult to do and also expensive, and they are the ones who control their shinobi, the people that have access to chakra. So they don't allow other types of chakra businesses to arise and become competition for them. Because, for example, if a particular client is asking a ninja of your village to build something with earth style or communicate a message with your mind link jutsu, that's a fair mission nation that you can get money from. But if there's another business that's doing that better than you, and in an industrial capacity, then the demand for those services will decrease in the village, and the ninjas of every single village need to go on missions to make money for themselves and also for the villages. If they were to leave for other businesses, that would be catastrophic for the shinobi system. So the system itself doesn't allow these types of businesses to arise in any major way. And I imagine that if a particular chakra business were to arise in a particular major nation, the village from that nation would send a squadron of ninjas to destroy it and possibly even eliminate the people conducting that business. After all, maybe they were ninjas in the past, or maybe they somehow learned how to manipulate ninjutsu by themselves, but they're probably not going to be as powerful as ninjas trained to kill and fight. And they have been doing that their entire lives. When you as a chakra businessman doesn't really know how to fight very well, you know how to build houses or produce electricity. Your chakra and ninjutsu may be kinda useful during fights, but you're not gonna be the best at them, and a trained shinobi is gonna destroy you. Now, you could hire other ninjas to protect your business from the ninjas that are gonna come to attack you, but that's gonna make operating your business that much more expensive. And also, I would imagine there is this pact between all major villages that they will not lend their ninjas to chakra businesses in other nations, so they avoid a war, and so they decentivize everyone from even making a chakra business because no village will allow their ninjas to go and protect it. So the monopoly of the shinobi system over chakra itself is maintained and the villages are secure. That is important to maintain the stability of the shinobi world and also the balance of power between nations. Because if there's a business affecting just one specific nation, decreasing the revenue, that's going to make them much more vulnerable to the other nations, and that's going to offset the balance of power. But if there's a time when these types of chakra business could develop, that will be after the Fourth Great Ninja War, when the 5 major nations become friends and allies with each other. Something unprecedented that now allows for things the old system wouldn't. The 5 major nations wouldn't be scared of an imbalance in power because now they know the others are allies. And they can actually try to incentivize these businesses to grow and maybe even boost their economies. Now, if Naruto had a sequel, this would be a very interesting topic to develop, but obviously Naruto does not need a sequel, and I wouldn't want to see something that would ruin the Naruto series. But the question still stands, does it not? If this type of chakra business became ubiquitous in the Naruto world, how much would chakra cost? And that's the problem here. Even if we assign a specific value, like a kilogram for chakra, chakra itself would be very difficult to calculate a price for, and that's simply because it can do too many things. The market forces of supply and demand would rather dictate prices for specific jutsus and abilities that ninjas were to use, like building a house or sending a message or even transporting them with water style, rather than the chakra ounce itself. And so obviously you could imagine that more specific types of jutsus and more difficult jutsus that are much more demanded would cost more for people to buy. And also, it would probably be easier to create a chakra business revolving around something there's a lot of demand for and not something so niche. Because when it comes to niche things, then the villages themselves and how the system used to work probably still works better. A buyer goes to the village that has a lot of shinobis with different abilities, and the village can choose, okay, this guy here is going to be good for your mission, for your service that you require. And when you go to a chakra business, you'd have something less personalized, but in greater abundance, because you would be able to essentially create an industry around your chakra and your specific ability, making it cheaper for whoever wants to buy, and also making the service or the good itself much more profitable for your business. But chakra itself would have a cost for a few specific cases, one of them being the production of electricity, because regardless of how much chakra you have, it will be much easier for you to measure consistently how much chakra you use to produce a certain amount of power. And yes, obviously some ninjas are able to mull their chakra better than others and use it more efficiently, so they would get more mileage out of their chakra, and therefore the quote-unquote price of chakra would probably be calculated on how many watts of energy you can produce, rather than how much chakra you spent doing that. And so you can do the reverse calculation and calculate for yourself how much a quote-unquote ounce of chakra would pay for you. But this number would vary from person to person depending on how efficient they are at producing electricity, and also any other jutsu really. So the answer for the video's question is, it depends on how efficient you are in molding your chakra and producing your jutsus, and it also depends on the type of jutsus and services you will offer to clients. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to this channel, and ring notifications. It really helps me out when you do that. Click on the video showing up on your screen for more cool Naruto content, and thank you so much for watching.